federal witness against Balkan weapons trafficking network. 2 professional killers confirmed entering United States through Canada 36 hours ago. The witness provided testimony that dismantled a pipeline supplying military-grade weapons to criminal organizations across 12 American cities. Serbian organized crime syndicate placed $2 million contract on witness and family. Intelligence confirms killers crossed border using forged documents, currently traveling south toward witness location in Ohio. Family of 5 at risk. Witness, spouse, 3 children, ages 8, 12, and 16. Children attending school today. Normal routine. Killer's estimated arrival, 22 hours. Marshal Service has 22 hours to extract family before professional assassins reach the quiet suburb where a man who helped stop the flow of illegal weapons lives with people who know nothing of his past. The weapons pipeline had operated for nearly a decade before federal investigators understood its scope. Military-grade firearms manufactured in former Yugoslavian factories were transported through a network of shell companies across Eastern Europe. They moved through Croatia, Slovenia, Austria, and Germany before reaching ports in Rotterdam and Hamburg. From there, shipping containers marked as industrial equipment carried the weapons across the Atlantic to ports in Newark, Baltimore, and Savannah. The weapons were not ordinary firearms. They included fully automatic assault rifles, military sniper systems, grenades, rocket-propelled grenade launchers, and in at least 2 documented cases, shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles. These were weapons of war being sold to street gangs, drug cartels, and domestic extremist groups who could never acquire such firepower through legal channels. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives had tracked fragments of this network for years. They would seize a shipment in one city only to see identical weapons appear in another. They would arrest a mid-level distributor who knew nothing about the supply chain above him. They would trace serial numbers to factories that had officially ceased operations decades ago, but somehow continued producing weapons for a black market that stretched across continents. The breakthrough came through a man who had worked inside the network for 7 years. He had begun as a truck driver, moving containers from ports to warehouses across the eastern seaboard. He had proven reliable, discreet, and capable of following instructions without asking questions. Over time, his responsibilities expanded. He began coordinating shipments. He met the regional distributors who received the weapons. He learned how the money flowed back to Europe through cryptocurrency exchanges and Hawala networks. He also began to understand what these weapons were doing. A shooting in Chicago that killed 4 people, including a child, involved rifles he had transported. A massacre at a nightclub in Miami was perpetrated with grenades that had passed through his warehouse. An assassination of a federal judge in Texas used a sniper rifle that he had personally unpacked from a shipping container. The blood was on his hands, even if he had never pulled a trigger. The man contacted the ATF through an anonymous tip line. The initial conversation lasted 4 minutes. He provided enough specific information to establish credibility. A shipment arriving in Newark the following week, the warehouse where it would be stored. The names of 2 distributors scheduled to receive portions of the cargo. Federal agents surveilled the locations and confirmed every detail. The anonymous tipster was real, and he was inside the network. Over the following 18 months, the man became the most valuable informant the ATF had developed in a generation. He wore recording devices to meetings with network leadership. He copied financial records from computers he was trusted to access. He provided real-time intelligence about shipments that allowed federal agents to track weapons without intercepting them, building cases against distributors across the country who believed their supply chain remained secure. The investigation culminated in a coordinated operation spanning 12 cities. 147 individuals were arrested in a single day. Seized evidence included over 4,000 weapons, 600,000 rounds of ammunition, and financial records documenting transactions exceeding $80 million over 8 years. The network was not merely disrupted, it was destroyed. The informant's testimony was essential to prosecution of the network's American leadership. He spent 11 days on the witness stand across multiple trials, describing the operation in detail that defense attorneys could not effectively challenge. His recordings were played for juries. His documentation was entered into evidence. His face was shown on news broadcasts that reached audiences in the United States and Europe. The Serbian syndicate that controlled the European end of the pipeline watched these broadcasts. They had lost a business worth tens of millions annually. They had lost trusted partners who would spend decades in American prisons. They had lost reputation in criminal circles, where reliability was the currency of trust. Someone had betrayed them, and that someone was now visible on television screens. Describing their operations to federal prosecutors, the contract was issued within days of the first conviction, $2 million for the informant and his family. Not just the informant himself, but everyone connected to him. The syndicate wanted to send a message that would echo through every potential informant, considering cooperation with authorities. Betrayal means the death of everyone you love. The informant entered the witness security program immediately after the trials concluded. His family was relocated to a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, far from the coastal cities where the network had operated. New identities were created. A new history was constructed. The informant became a logistics consultant for a manufacturing company. His spouse found work as an office manager. Their 3 children enrolled in local schools, making friends who would never know where they had come from or why they had arrived. For 23 months, the family lived without incident. The informant attended parent-teacher conferences. He coached his youngest child's soccer team. He mowed the lawn on Saturday mornings and attended church on Sundays. He began to believe that the danger had passed, that the new identity had worked, that the syndicate had moved on to other concerns. Then, 36 hours ago, intelligence services intercepted communications indicating the contract had been activated. The Serbian syndicate had not forgotten. They had spent nearly 2 years searching for the informant, employing private investigators, hackers, and corrupt officials across multiple countries. The specific method of location remained unclear, but the result was certain. The syndicate knew the informant's new name, new address, and new city. They knew which schools the children attended. They knew which company employed the spouse. They knew everything. 2 men departed Belgrade 72 hours ago. Both were documented members of Serbian organized crime with extensive histories of violence. The first had served 8 years in Serbian prison for murder before his conviction was overturned on procedural grounds. He was suspected of at least 6 additional killings across Europe, none of which had resulted in prosecution. The second had been trained by Serbian special forces before being discharged for conduct violations. He had subsequently worked as an enforcer for criminal organizations throughout the Balkans, specializing in assassinations that appeared to be accidents or random violence. The 2 men flew from Belgrade to Toronto using forged Canadian passports. They cleared customs without incident, their false identities having no flags in any database. They rented a vehicle and drove south, crossing into the United States. at a remote border point in Vermont, where security was minimal and documentation checks were cursory. By the time border protection systems flagged their passport numbers as potentially fraudulent, the men were already 200 miles inside American territory. Intelligence tracking their progress indicated they were moving steadily southwest toward Ohio. Cell phone signals placed them in New York State 12 hours ago. Current estimate positioned them in Pennsylvania, approximately 450 miles from Columbus. At their current rate of travel, maintaining legal speed limits to avoid attention, they would arrive in the informant's neighborhood in approximately 22 hours. The Marshal Service received notification at 6:47 a.m. Eastern Time. By 7:30 a.m., a threat assessment team had confirmed the credibility of the intelligence. By 8:15 a.m., the decision was made: emergency extraction of the informant's family before the killers arrived. The informant was at work when the call came. A deputy marshal appeared at his office, explaining quietly that they needed to speak privately. In a conference room with the door closed, the deputy delivered the news: "Your location has been compromised. Professional killers are coming. We need to move your family today." The informant's first question was about his children. The three were currently at school, following their normal Monday routine. The 8-year-old was in 3rd grade, probably in math class at that moment. The 12-year-old was in middle school, perhaps at lunch. The 16-year-old was in high school, likely thinking about the upcoming weekend rather than professional assassins driving toward her from another country. The extraction plan was coordinated within hours. The informant would be transported directly from his workplace to a secure federal facility. The spouse would be collected from the office by deputies posing as colleagues, delivering urgent news about a family emergency. The children would be removed from their schools by marshals carrying emergency authorization, their teachers told only that a family situation required immediate departure. The family would be reunited at the secure facility. New identities would be prepared. A new destination would be selected. Within 48 hours, the family would disappear again, leaving behind the life they had built over 23 months. The house with the new furniture, the neighborhood where they had finally felt safe, the friends and routines and small comforts of ordinary existence. At 11:15 a.m., deputies arrived at the spouse's workplace. The explanation was brief and urgent. The spouse asked no questions, understanding immediately that the past had returned. They walked to a waiting vehicle with the calm of someone who had rehearsed this moment in nightmares for nearly 2 years. At 11:30 a.m., deputies arrived at the elementary school. The 8-year-old was removed from class, told only that there was a family emergency. The child asked if someone was hurt. The deputy said everyone was fine, but they needed to leave right now. The child collected a backpack and walked out, trusting adults who wore serious expressions but spoke in gentle voices. At 11:45 a.m., deputies arrived at the middle school. The 12-year-old was in the cafeteria when summoned to the office. This child was old enough to understand that family emergency might mean something worse than illness or accident. The child asked directly, "Is this about before?" The deputy answered, "We'll explain everything when we're together." The child nodded and followed without further questions. At 12 p.m., deputies arrived at the high school. The 16-year-old was in class when called to the office, already suspicious because 3 years of living under protection had taught awareness of unusual situations. The teenager saw the deputies and understood immediately. No questions were asked, no explanations were requested. The child simply stood, collected belongings, and walked toward people who represented safety rather than threat. By 12:30 p.m., all 5 family members were en route to the secure facility in separate vehicles, taking different routes to prevent any single point of interception. The house in the suburb was empty, abandoned with dishes in the sink and laundry in the dryer. A frozen moment of ordinary life that would never be resumed. Meanwhile, the two killers continued their journey south. They had stopped for fuel in Pennsylvania, captured on gas station surveillance cameras that were being reviewed by federal analysts within hours. Their vehicle was identified: a dark blue Ford Explorer with Ontario plates, rented under the same fraudulent identities used to enter Canada. The license plate was added to every law enforcement database in the northeastern United States. Every patrol officer, every highway camera, every automated reader was now searching for that specific vehicle. At 3:15 p.m., a state trooper in western Pennsylvania spotted the Explorer on Interstate 76. The trooper initiated a traffic stop, radioing for backup before approaching. The driver, one of the two Serbian killers, provided documentation that appeared valid. The trooper's computer showed no outstanding warrants for the names on the documents, but the trooper had been briefed about the vehicle and knew to delay. Backup arrived within 4 minutes. 2 additional patrol cars and a federal vehicle that had been shadowing the operation. The killers were ordered out of the vehicle at gunpoint. They complied without resistance, understanding that armed confrontation with American law enforcement would accomplish nothing. They were handcuffed and transported to federal custody for immigration violations, while the vehicle was searched. Inside the Explorer, investigators found 2 handguns with serial numbers filed off, ammunition, surveillance equipment, and printed photographs of the informant's Ohio neighborhood. The photographs showed the family home from multiple angles. They showed the elementary school where the 8-year-old attended class. They showed the route the spouse took to work each morning. The killers had done their research. They had planned their approach. They had been hours from execution. At the secure facility, the informant's family learned of the arrest together. The children did not fully understand what had been prevented. The spouse wept with relief. The informant sat in silence, staring at the photographs that had been shown to them as evidence of the threat, seeing his own home through the eyes of men sent to destroy everyone inside it. The 2 Serbian killers were charged with conspiracy to commit murder, illegal weapons possession, immigration fraud, and various federal charges that would ensure they never left American custody. Their Serbian handlers, learning of the failed operation, began the process of distancing themselves from men who were now liabilities rather than assets. The $2 million contract remained open, but the syndicate would need to find new operatives to fulfill it. The informant's family was relocated within 72 hours. The new destination was not disclosed, even in internal documents. The new identities were created with additional security measures learned from this breach. The family would disappear more completely than before, trading the relative freedom of the Ohio suburb for a more isolated existence where fewer potential points of compromise existed. The children would change schools again. The 16-year-old, who had been planning for college applications, would need to construct a new academic history. The 12-year-old would lose touch with friends made over nearly 2 years of apparent normalcy. The 8-year-old would ask once again why they had to move, why they couldn't stay, why everything kept changing. What was prevented? 5 family members, including 3 children, ages 8, 12, and 16, were protected from professional assassins sent by Serbian organized crime. 2 killers with documented histories of violence were intercepted 400 miles from the target location, carrying weapons and surveillance materials proving their intentions. A family was extracted with 22 hours remaining before the killer's estimated arrival. If the marshals had delayed even 12 hours, the extraction might not have been complete before the killers reached Ohio. The children might have been in school when armed men arrived at their home. The spouse might have been at work, unreachable and unprotected. The informant might have faced the choice between his own survival and the lives of family members scattered across a city that suddenly contained hunters. Instead, the family was reunited in federal protection, while their would-be murderers were taken into custody hundreds of miles away. The photographs showing their home, their schools, their daily routes became evidence in a prosecution rather than operational intelligence for an assassination. The syndicate's $2 million investment purchased only federal charges and the certainty that American law enforcement could protect those who helped bring criminals to justice. The weapons pipeline the informant helped destroy had supplied firearms to criminals across 12 cities. The violence those weapons enabled had killed dozens and wounded hundreds. The informant's testimony had stopped the flow, had put 147 people in prison, had prevented future shipments that would have armed future killers. The cost of that testimony was a life spent in protection, moving from identity to identity, never fully safe, never fully free, but alive. The family remained alive. The children would grow up, would graduate from schools whose names they would eventually forget, would build lives under names that were not their own. They would carry the trauma of repeated displacement, the knowledge that somewhere in the world, people wanted them dead for something their parent had done, but they would carry it into futures that remained possible because federal agents worked faster than assassins. 22 hours. That was the margin between the intelligence arriving and the killers reaching their destination. 22 hours to verify the threat, make decisions, coordinate extraction, remove 5 people from 3 different locations, and transport them to safety. 22 hours during which children sat in classrooms learning mathematics and history while professional murderers drove steadily toward them. The informant still believes the testimony was the right choice. The weapons he helped stop would have continued flowing into American cities, arming criminals who used them against innocent people. The violence he witnessed, the child killed in Chicago, the nightclub massacre in Miami, would have continued multiplying. Someone had to stop it. Someone had to accept the consequences. The consequences include a life under protection, a family that can never fully relax, children who understand that their parent did something that made powerful people want them dead. The consequences include moving again and again, losing homes and friends, and the accumulated texture of ordinary life. The consequences are permanent and inescapable, but the family is alive. The traffickers are in prison. The weapons pipeline is destroyed. And when Serbian killers came to America seeking revenge, federal agents were waiting, ready to protect those who had risked everything to help stop the flow of instruments of death. 22 hours. That was all the time they had, and that was all the time they needed.